Hi, my name is Grace Shalom Hopkins and welcome to another episode of Spin Weekly. Today, Today we are working with my first package from the Sheep Spot Fiber Club. I have left links to that down below, and it is a Tunis Fleece. I'm gonna call it a Tunis Fleece, and please correct me down below if that's not how you say it. So I only spun a small portion, but this is what it looked like when I got it. That bag was more full. And then here is a lock from that fleece, and I will insert a photo so you can see better. The crimp on this is insane. It is magical. However, I'm going to tell you right from the get-go, I managed to botch the draft. It's been crazy around here. A lot of this is filmed on my phone, which does 4K, so you shouldn't really notice a difference. But it's been crazy. And I guess I took out the craziness on this fleece and over-twisted it pretty a lot. So... yeah, so it's way more ropey than I would have liked, and that's what happens with long locks. If you twist them too much, they get ropey. And so we have this, and I will insert a photo as always, and it is not the ropiest, but not the softest either. But before I totally go into that, I want to mention that we're going to be doing the in-depth breed study where I talk about the history of the breed, and spoiler alert, it is so interesting this time. Super interesting. Like, potentially more interesting than Rambouillet, and Rambouillet was super fascinating. So while I talk about that breed study, I'm not going to be talking about the prep that I'm doing, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a peek into the prep now. So there's more talking at the beginning. So I knew I wanted to comb this fleece because Sasha of the Sheep Spot suggested combing, and I know that that's great, and I haven't done that before, and it's really one of the best ways to prep a long wool fleece. However, I need my vision board. I don't have combs. I have a hackle, but that's not quite right. So I rigged up one of my hand curds and was able to open up the lock like that. And as I'm telling you about the breed study, I will comment on that a little bit, I think, but that's what I'm gonna do. So if you don't have combs, but you do have hand curds, you can gently and intentionally mimic some of the combing process. The next thing I did is I included sari silk threads, bamboo, and fire star. Yeah. And just laid the teeniest bits in there so it would have this poppin' effect. And it really did. And I think because this is ropey, I'll probably donate this to the art weaving fund that my mother has going on. But I think once you put it with something else, those little pops of color are going to be really incredible. And if you applied this technique to any other natural fleece, you get the natural coloration, and in this case it's just cream, so it's not all that happening. But a good cream is nice. Yeah. But as well, you get the little pops of color that highlight the natural shades. I really love this. And I think when I spin the Shetland, I'm probably going to do something similar. I decided to N-ply it because I don't often N-ply, and because I wanted to further break up those pops of color. If you left it a single, they'd be really intense. If you two-plied it, there's a possibility that two of the plies... Oh, really? If you two-plied it, there's a possibility that at that same spot you'd be plying together two pops of color, and then it would be a blip rather than a peppering, I guess. So I N-plied it to minimize that damage. So that was my thought process that went into it, kind of how I did it, what some of the drawbacks were, And I am going to wrap up at the end with some final thoughts after that breed study, so I will see you then. Alright, before we get started, I just couldn't help but show you the spring on this lock. Oh my gosh! Doesn't that just make you so excited? Also, what will make you excited is the fantastic history behind this fiber. So, as I'm prepping this on my hand card, I am going to tell you about this fantastic beast. You know how the drill goes. Though I will point out that most of this is done on my mobile phone, so the quality is the same, but there is some like shakiness. And right here, I'm going to point out that I found that it was really handy if you sort of open up the lock by hand and then twist it at the center, and that's how you kept it from getting too crazy. And start with the butt end and then do the tips. Also, it helps to do several small flicks rather than trying to yank it through. So those of you who have long hair should understand this concept pretty much, you know, by experience. If there's a knot, open it up with your fingers. Don't just like yank it out. You're gonna rip all the hair out of your head and maybe break your comb in the process. Okay, so in 1799, the Bey of Tunis, Hamada ibn Ali, sent 10 Tunisian Berberin sheep to George Washington as a gift. So the name Tunis describes this American breed's connections to its Tunisian roots. So maybe it's Tunis. Anyway, Tunisia is in North Africa, and the North African sheep obviously needed to be compatible with North African weather, which my family lives in North Africa, and boy is it hot! Oh my goodness, super hot! So, their fat-tailed Barbary sheep is kind of what they were colloquially known as. Alright, so let's talk about what that means now. So as far as we know, based on the 5 million Tunisian sheep that are in the North African area now, the Berberin sheep is coarse wool. It's mostly for meat. It's very adapted to the intense heat, like I mentioned, and it can tolerate the brackish water. The coat is white, and the face is either reddish, brown, or black. So the black face gives it better resistance to the sunlight, and photosynthesis is caused by it eating St. John's wort. So there are 2 types now and 8 subpopulations within the breed. So that's Tunisian sheep, from which Tunis sheep have descended. So now let's circle back, now that we kind of understand what they looked like when they arrived at George Washington's house. So George Washington evidently wasn't interested in sheep raising, so he gave them to Judge Richard Peters of Belmont, Pennsylvania. And that guy made the rams available and gave away lambs to help spread the sheep breed to others. So they've referenced this sheep in lots of letters and farm records and journals. So it's pretty clear that lots of key people had these sheeps. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Richard Peters, a bunch of other people. So it became recognized as a uniquely American breed. Definitely by the late 18th century and 19th century, that would make it the oldest American livestock breed. Because, as you probably noted, they weren't really concerned with keeping the breed pure. They were just letting everybody around everybody. So, the sheep spread through the mid-Atlantic and the southeastern United States, and it adapted well to the weather and humidity there. So the Tunis became the mainstay of sheep production in the South and the Atlantic region until the Civil War, when basically all of them were wiped out, along with, everything else. Okay, so the only reason the breed survived was a guy from South Carolina, Maynard Spigner, hid them in his land along the Congaree River near the city of Columbia. That was legitimately the last flock of the sheep because everything else was just ransacked by the war. So after that, the Great Lakes in New England became strongholds for the breed, which makes sense based on economics and access and things like that. The South it took them a while to get back on their feet again. So that leads us to today, where only recently has the Tunis made its way back to the southern part of the United States with those southern people. So today the Tunis is red-faced and ivory-colored fleece. The lambs are born with a double coat of red fiber, and that protects their bodies from the elements. And they lighten up as they mature, but they retain the red head and legs, they're really beautiful. You should definitely Google a photograph of these sheep. Also, while you're at it, Google the Tunisian sheep to kind of compare and contrast what they came from and what they are now. So their fleece is medium grain wool. It turns white during processing, and they usually weigh 7 to 12 pounds, staple length 3 to 5 inches. They're super lustrous. You should have been able to see that in the clip at the beginning. Definitely comparable to something like BFL. 24 to 30 microns and a long staple 4 to 6 inches. They are remarkably good mothers. They produce excellent milk. They usually twin and sometimes triplet. But to this day, they still are primarily meat sheep. So I've left links to a really interesting place where I got a lot of this information. I think it's the Tunisian Society of America or something like that. Down below if you want to have a look at that. And with that, I am going to leave you to listen to some music and watch all of the rest of the spin and the resulting shenanigans. Have fun! scattered, but I think that's an accurate portrayal of my week. And I think the yarn is a little bit of an accurate portrayal of my week. It's mellow, it's natural, it's got some pops of color, it's beautiful and subtle. There's not much of it, it's just a little sample. It's a little overspun, there are some funky bits about it, but overall it's beautiful, and the history behind it is really fascinating. So, you know, there's that. I want to know, what is your favorite way to prepare a long wool fleece, and what was the most interesting part of this breed study for you? I'm fascinated to know what fascinates you. As per usual, this episode is brought to you by our fantastic Patreon patrons. They support the show financially and morally, and it's just an awesome festival of awesome. One of the cool perks specific to this video that the Patreon family received was early breed study notes. So if you want access to my notes and you want to have a sneak peek into the breed before I film it, you might want to consider joining the Spin Weekly Patreon family. Also, if you liked this video, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our shenanigans. Hit the like button and absolutely comment and tell me what you think. Answer my questions. I love knowing what you're thinking. That makes me more able to create content that you want to see. Also, the camaraderie is just banging, people. It's banging. Also, we have a special announcement. Our tiny baby bean, say hi baby bean, turned 1 year this month. So you're a year-old baby bean. Yes, you are. Yeah, she walks. She wreaks havoc on all those around. Yes, you do. It's amazing. She's the best. So, since you guys funded her birth and all subsequent medical care, which hasn't been that much, thankfully, and really stood by me during all of the endometriosis and craziness that preceded her, I thought you guys would want to do a little celebration. Happy birthday to Baby Bean. So with that, I am going to say goodbye, and I will see you next time. Bye!